Good morning, Jean-Philippe. How are you today?
Good morning, John. I'm good, thank you.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for your time, Jean-Philippe, today. We look forward to learning more about you and your stellar background. However, in the first instance, please could you further introduce yourself to our audience, please?
Sure. First of all, John, thanks for having me on your blog. So, Jean-Philippe Gerbi, I have more than 25 years. I'm not going to go further. 25 years of experience in technology. I've been CIO for the past 10 years, little over 10 years, working, in fact, in really two companies. I've been working for a French investment bank for more than 23 years. And then I joined Metropolitan Commercial Bank 3 years ago as the CIO.
Brilliant. And how did you get into technology? What was your journey from whether it be university and what did you study, if you don't mind just delving into that a bit?
Look, I really liked it when I was a kid, very young. I was part of a club where, at the time, it was not very advanced. It was a logo. So you had the little turtle to move around, things like that. And in fact, the first computer I touched was an Apple computer, an Apple IIe. And I really loved it. And I said, okay, I want to become a developer. So that's really the trajectory that I had much younger and during my school year. So I went to the university in France. I studied mathematics and social sciences first, and then had a bachelor degree in business and technology.
Amazing, amazing. Well, we look forward to learning more about, how that's enabled you to progress on your career. And to begin with, I'd like to ask you with my first question, which is reflecting on your time at Credit Agricole, what was the key challenges and successes in navigating the internal culture and adapting your leadership approach to drive transformation?
Well, first, Credit Agricole it's a French bank, fairly large, 2.3 trillion in assets. And I did most of my career in the US. So already, you have a French person coming to the US managing a team, a diverse team, where the culture is slightly different. I think French people are more straightforward, so you need to learn a little bit maybe how to articulate in a different way when you're working in the US. And it's much more collaborative, in fact, in the US. Although I would say it all depends on the organization there. And Crédit Agricole was fairly open. I think the people there were fairly collaborative as opposed to maybe other banks. And one of the things really that I learned is to be visible, because when you're in the US and the decision making is for the most part in Paris, you need to be visible, talk to people, visit them. So I was going to Paris very, very often
Yeah,
to with the senior management. But what's interesting is that I think the culture is made by people, really. It's really that. And when I was there, I used to hear, oh, when you work for a French bank, you can't go anywhere. That is not a French bank, another French bank, because the culture is totally different and people have difficulties to adapt. And I don't think that's true. When I moved to Metropolitan Commercial Bank, I did not have any difficulties because the people here are very collaborative, open, and it was a very easy way to adapt.
amazing, amazing. It's great to learn, and understand more about sort of, navigating that environment where you go to a new country like the US, and the approach that you decided upon would be to, in essence, make yourself visible, and from there you establish that, really in any environment, potentially culture is made by the people in terms of giving that authenticity to, their everyday life in their working environment. So it's great to learn and understand a bit more from that perspective. Brilliant. With the continued growth at Metropolitan Commercial Bank, what strategies are you most focused on to ensure scalability and resilience within your IT infrastructure as an organization expands?
Well, John, when I started, The first thing I did was to assess the environment, the organization, and try to understand the strategy of the bank. And one of the things from the get-go that I said is that you need solid foundations in order to build on top of it, because the bank had an ambitious core banking transformation program. And we had to really look at all the different aspects of IT. On the organization side, we did a lot of investments around that. The team has grown. We changed the processes. We addressed, of course, any operational risk that we could see, where what you want to avoid is that you're relying on a single person, and you never know how that person may leave, may get sick. So you want to reduce that risk, understand what people are doing, automating also as much as you can. So that way you rely a little less on people. On the resiliency side, so we did a lot of work in the past 3 years. We reviewed our setup with primary data center, secondary data center. We changed all of that. In fact, at the beginning of the year, we moved both our data centers to a co-location successfully. No issues. I have to give it to the team. We totally changed our network. So everything is automated in terms of failover, whether we're talking about the branches connectivity to the data centers, our connectivity to our cloud, our connectivity to our main provider. Of course, if something unusual happens, we may have to go manual, but I would say that 99% of what we did is fully automated. Why did we do that? It's because when you've been through some events like Sandy, for example, or even COVID, when something happens, you don't know who's going to be available. And you want to rely very minimally on human beings. Even if people are very dedicated, you don't know if they're going to be available. So that's why the direction I gave to the team was to automate as much as possible our disaster recovery.
Yeah, and that's absolutely been very, very prudent. And as you've mentioned, COVID and Hurricane Sandy, two environments that no one could have predicted, and to use that as a prerequisite to ensure that you've got resilience within your data centers, to ensure that you've got the right solid foundations in place is absolutely critical. So yeah, it's good to learn and to hear more about. Brilliant. So you've made strides in disaster recovery and operational risk management at Metropolitan Commercial Bank. How do you see the role of AI in enhancing these capabilities, especially as the bank moves into hyperconvergence platforms?
So, well, first of all, the hyperconvergence, goes into what I just mentioned. And the idea is even in terms of failover of our servers, in the event we lose a node or we lose a data center, we want to automate that as much as possible. We did that at Crédit Agricole. I have to say we had a great success there, where we were able to recover most of our application in a matter of minutes. And it's what we want to do at Metropolitan also, even if the technology is different, the idea is the same. And again, relying minimally on people whenever there's an incident. Some of the technologies are already leveraging AI, where, for example, they're going to do some analysis of the logs of the servers to try to predict any failure. Why? Because that way it costs less to replace a hard drive before it fails rather than after, of course, because then you have all the question around the data. So AI definitely is gonna help in that, and I'm sure we're gonna be using a little bit more AI in some of the automation that we want to do in terms of processes also, where we're going to be able, and probably with agentic AI, to go one step further in terms of self-healing whenever there is an issue.
Amazing, amazing. Great that you're looking at using agentic AI to, whether it be improve processes. And I think from what you've just shared, it sounds as though that you're already at an advanced stage in terms of introducing AI to your applications. And then once again, you're sort of reinforcing your failover environment by automating any predictable events should they occur. So really great to hear about that as well. Brilliant. So as AI continues to evolve, what are some of the key challenges you anticipate when integrating it into critical systems like core banking, payment platforms, and risk management?
So I think, so first, when we talk about AI has been around for quite some time. So it has evolved greatly in the past few years, and it's evolving even further. I just mentioned agentic AI, where before we were talking about an AI where the human being were even more present, a human in the loop. Now with agentic AI, the risk is that the human in the loop is not going to be there because this AI is more autonomous and adaptive. So I think what we are looking right now, we're doing that large core transformation project where we're reviewing totally the applications that we're using for core banking, deposit, loans, payments, online banking. And what we're doing is not to recreate what we're doing today. It's to really streamline the processes. So the first step is to streamline our processes. And then after that, we're going to see how we can leverage on AI to further, in fact, enhance not only the back office experience, but also on the customer side, directly or indirectly, because ultimately, if you're able to process faster, it's going to enhance your customer experience. So we have to wait until we have finalized, we're going live with those systems to put another layer to see how AI can help us. The challenge, I think there's a few. The first one is to make sure that when we implement AI, we don't forget about the processes. I think that was one of the mistakes of RPA, where people automated with RPA processes, and then they totally forgot what those processes were. They did not document them. They lost the knowledge. And when something broke, they had no idea, how to fix it, why it was done that way, all of that. So we need to make sure that with AI, we really are still in control of what those processes are, we document them well, and we understand where we're going on those processes, especially if we allow AI to enhance part of it. The guardrails are also important because you want to make sure that the data you're using is good. Of course, you use it ethically, and that the access to that data is well controlled, because what you want to avoid also is that somebody is going to use an AI tool and have access to data they should not normally have access to. So those guardrails need to be in place. So that's why it's important to create a framework around AI adoption. So that way you can take into account all those different risks that we see with AI.
Yeah, absolutely agreed. Excellent. Okay. So Metropolitan Commercial Bank's core transformation is well underway with digital centralization as key focus. How do you plan to leverage the data warehouse for deeper AI-driven insights and hyper-personalized client experiences?
So what we're doing right now is to build that data warehouse because the data was in different places. And I don't think it's been sufficiently used. So we are bringing that data in our enterprise data warehouse as we are implementing those core banking systems. And the idea is to democratize that data. So explaining to people, look, now this is the type of data that we have that you can use for your reporting, for your operational dashboard. And once you have it, of course, you need a bit more data than what we have today, as we are still moving in that process. We're going to be able to plug AI to do some predictive analysis, some client personalization. But we need that data and we need clean data. So that's why we're also embarked in a project around data governance and data management.
Yeah. Excellent. Okay. So you've worked with offshore partners with great success. What has been the most important lessons you've learned building a robust offshore partnership, particularly in terms of governance and communication?
It's a good question because it's always complicated to work with offshore partners because of the time difference. Unless, of course, you're within the Americas, it's going to be easy. But when you work, with Asia, when you work with Europe, the time difference creates some constraints. So, for example, meetings can only occur in the morning. So you need to be prepared to organize that properly, sometimes start a little earlier, your meetings. And communication is going to be very, very important. So what we are doing, and I've been doing that each time I worked with offshore partners, is to have regular touch point to see what's going on, and sometimes informal also. So you can better understand what are the challenges and see how you can help them. But it's really a question of organization, because when you think about it, yes, you may have a constraint with the time difference, but sometimes it's to your advantage, because you have a question, let's say this morning, you're going to have your answer tomorrow morning because of that time difference. So you need to be able to understand, the pros and cons and adapt to it.
Absolutely. I think, one question one would like to ask is, how do you then determine where those, whether you have, say, for example, an EST time difference versus GMT or Asia Pacific? But obviously, it's based on where your environment is in terms of your jurisdictions. But what regulates that, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, look, it's going to be reasonableness, I would say, at the end, depending on the type of meeting it's going to be. I mean, when you're in a company like Crédit Agricole, for example, where you have a center in Asia, where you have your head office in Paris, sometimes you need to adapt with the time. I remember one time I had a meeting at 3:30 in the morning because it was with the CEO of the bank,
Mhm.
and it was the only time he was available. So it was an important meeting around innovation. And
Mhm.
I said, all right, I'm going to be there. So I probably did not look that fresh, on camera, but I had to be there.
Yeah,
It happened also that I had calls, at 8 p.m. also because it was with Asia. So on both sides, people were trying to adapt. And so it's a give and take. So sometimes you're going to be the one waking up early or working maybe later at night on a call. Sometimes it's going to be them.
brilliant. Great to understand. And thank you for sharing. Brilliant. Okay, so in your opinion, what is the biggest misconceptions about sorry. Okay. So in your opinion, what is the biggest misconceptions about buy versus build in financial services technology? And how does Metropolitan Commercial Bank approach this decision-making process for key applications?
So we published last year um, infrastructure architecture, where one of the principles is we buy before we build. Why? Look, at the end, I'm a strong believer that there's no need to reinvent the wheel. And there's a lot of companies putting millions of dollars in systems, and they know better than us, how to build those systems, whether we're talking about, back office systems, for example, and even sometimes front office systems. I think the risk after when you buy is customization, because a lot of time people are like, okay, we're going to buy, but they start customizing, and we need to challenge them. Why are we so different? Why do we need to customize? Why? Because you always pay the price down the road of customization. A system highly customized, whenever you're going to need to upgrade it, it's going to become more complicated. And I make the difference between configuration that is really out of the box, in the system where you just configure a few parameters, maybe some workflow, from customization where you're asking them to change their code. Configuration is okay. Customization, we have to be very careful. It has to be an absolute necessity. After, when you decide to build yourself, I think it's more when it's going to be something that is not really in the market, that can be more proprietary to your business, where you want to keep control of it. At that point, you can decide to build. Of course, after you have all the build you can do outside a system that you buy, all the integration, you need to do that development. But the core, I would not touch it if I don't need to.
Brilliant. Really good to understand, especially from a technology, a CIO leader like yourself in the fintech space, because I can imagine that with all the various opportunities of with regards to buy, build, integrate, you have to be what's the word? I would say appropriate to your environment and completely understand, the understanding behind if you do will it be buy, then the customizable element absolutely can be quite daunting as you go forward on your journey. So yeah, it's good to understand. Thank you. Brilliant. So with regards to transformation, so that's the transformation of Metropolitan Commercial Bank's online banking system, especially the rapid implementation of account opening processes. How has this been recognized as a major success? And what were some of the most crucial decisions made for this project in terms of it being, will it be deliverable under a year with regards to your recognition?
Yeah, no, it's true that we've been nominated for an award with our partner, eBankit, that we have picked to build our online banking platform. And we built it in less than a year for our consumer. And with redesigning from scratch our online account opening. The selection process was interesting because you have so many tools out there. And interestingly, talking to people, some people were like, oh, well, why don't you build it yourself? And the thing is that there's a lot of banks try to build their online banking system, but then the maintenance is becoming a bit of an issue. And often people think about the project itself. They don't think about after the project where that platform needs to be maintained. We saw a lot of various vendors who had platforms, some proposing, a lot of functionalities, but talking to banks. So that's one of the things that absolutely people should do during an RFP. Talk to other banks. Maybe not the reference of the vendor. Try to get maybe to talk through maybe some of the partners you have saying, hey, I'm looking at this tool. Do you know anyone who's using it? So I would talk to them because the vendor is always going to give you a reference who's going to say mostly positive things. So you're trying to get maybe other resources, other contacts. And I remember one of the tools that we were looking at, one of the banks was deep in a very large project, trying to do what we are trying to do, and there was no way talking to them that that would be the approach we would pick. And my understanding is that they had to stop their project a few months later. So my recommendation is really try to talk to people other than references to understand if really it's the right choice for you.
Absolutely. Absolutely agreed. Definitely agree with that. Brilliant. So my final question, Jean-Philippe, is looking ahead, what emerging trends in banking technology do you believe will reshape the industry over the next 3 to 5 years? And how is Metropolitan Commercial Bank preparing to stay ahead of that curve?
AI, look, I think I would not mention AI. People would be surprised. It's everywhere. we see an evolution that is very, very fast. I mentioned agentic AI. That's the part that we see more and more in the press. It's going to be interesting to see how it's going to be used moving forward, not just for the customer experience, but also on the bank side. So I think this is where we're going to see more and more. Definitely more regulation around it, for sure, because of the risk of AI for banks and for their clients, for sure. That's going to be, for me, the main trend there. So, look, on our side, we are looking at AI very carefully. I think we are not people who just want to do AI just to tell people, hey, we're doing AI, because we see that a lot with banks or with vendors, putting AI next to their name. We have to be very, very careful, because I think now AI is getting to a territory that, if not properly implemented, can have adverse effects.
Absolutely agreed. And once again, from the conversations we're having, and you've mentioned this earlier in our discussions, where we do need to have that human in the loop element, and we can't just rely on AI giving us the information that we want to hear, and not having that cross-checked with a human intervention in some areas. So, yeah, fully agreed with you on there.
Yeah,
Well,
because it's an opportunity, John, definitely. I think not doing AI is a mistake. Going too fast is another mistake. So we have to be pragmatic there, but it's definitely exciting.
absolutely, it's definitely exciting. 100% agreed. Absolutely. Well, Jean-Philippe, it's been an absolute pleasure learning more about you from when you first landed in the US, and in essence, understanding that culture is really made by the people in environments. I mean, obviously your career is absolutely amazing, if I don't mind me saying, purely because you've only worked for two organizations, that's Credit Agricole and whether it be Metropolitan Commercial Bank and Credit Agricole, you were there for the best part of 18 years, always progressing, being promoted, etc. So it's really great to see, the visibility that you made there, and you further articulate that in our discussion. Also, great to learn about creating a solid foundation with regards to resilience within Metropolitan Commercial Bank, with regards to the data centers, and why sort of COVID and Hurricane Sandy sort of accelerated this environment. And then with regards to, automation for failovers, or, whether it be having already incorporated AI into some of your applications and already using agentic AI, most importantly, and also learning about, the data center that you've built, and why, in terms of partnering with would be an offshore partner, time difference is a key factor, whether it be, having meetings in the morning, but the way that you sort of navigate these environments is by having regular touch points. And then to learn more about your position with regards to buy versus build, and to further understand that with regards to purchasing an application, it would require also with regards to building an application would require customization. So and obviously with the configuration, then it means that you may need to change the code, as you mentioned. So it's really good to understand. And then with regards to understanding why you landed that award with regards to National Banking Awards, and understanding, the sort of the great progress that you've made there. And then once again, just finalizing with regards to, you see the future within banking technology space is agentic AI is the future. So it's really great to learn more about you, to learn more about your take on whether it be Metropolitan Commercial Bank, your background, your journey through university, and just to share everything that you had with us today. So let me hand over to you, please, and if you could please say the final words.
Well, look, technology is exciting. I love technology. So for me, what we see today is exciting, even if some people can be scared about it. So I think what is important is to embrace it the right way. So I'm really excited to what we're doing at Metropolitan Commercial Bank. There's a lot of things we're learning today, and definitely looking forward for more projects where we're going to see how we can uh, embrace really the trends of technology today. So look, John, I really enjoyed that conversation. I thank you a lot for having me on your vlog. Thanks everyone for listening.